You are tuning in to John Pierre and Mary's fun-loving, crazy, and honest podcast.
If it don't smell bad, it must be clean.
Unequally Yoked, where any and every topic, life,
marriage,
I'll go first because I have something to say.
Uh-oh.
kids, and entrepreneurship are up for discussion.
how does Mary, a pastor's daughter,
And John, a guy who rarely saw the inside of a church growing up, get together
No.
and stay together.
We all have roles.
what does life look like 10 plus years into marriage?
2 kids and trying to run a family business.
How do we keep this nest egg from cracking?
What you mean?
Listen in to Unequally Yoked as we dive in to give a man
Next. And a woman's perspective
Somebody back me up on
Nobody.
to all the topics married folks are talking about.
this. Are you ready?
Let's do this, boo. Hey guys, welcome back to episode 2 of Unequally Yoked with John Pierre and Mary. We are so excited. I know we use that word all the time.
But for real this time.
But for real this time. We are super excited to be joined by one of our most favorite people and just like huge cheerleaders in the
Man,
world,
yeah.
Paige Turner from HGTV. She's like a mega host. You know, she did Flop Nashville, and she has a new show that she's
Yeah.
going to tell us all about. And really, we just wanted to have the opportunity to sit with her, get to know her, and publicly thank her
Man.
for all the support that she's given John and I since before going for Soul.
Right, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Awesome.
Yeah, so let's introduce her. What's up, Paige Turner
Hey, you guys.
in the building?
Thank you, guys. Well, first off, did I hear you say episode 2?
This is season 3.
Season 3.
Season 3. I was like, you sound very seasoned with this. The whole intro's down pat. I'm like,
Come
this
on.
is amazing. I'm like, yes.
Come on.
Thank
Yes.
you guys for having me.
Oh, we're
No,
so
we're super
so
excited.
excited to have you here. And hey, when did you start wearing glasses? Wait a minute. Come on, frames.
Well, let me tell you, because of you, I said, okay, Mary's going to have on any one of the colors of eyeglasses, and I'm actually very blind. And so
Oh.
I have progressives, and my contacts, I have 2 different prescriptions in each eye. And so
Wow.
your one is far. And I'm getting over from being under the weather yesterday. So
Mm.
I just didn't feel like putting on contacts. I said, my girl Mary's gonna have on her fly glasses. So let me
So
go.
is.
She will.
Because guess what? I can't wear contacts. I have astigmatism. So you know what? Let's make it fun and frame out this face
I
and
love
do
it.
all the accessories. I love that. Okay, I think you have to stick with this look though. I'm here for the glasses.
Thank you.
Yeah, so this is our 3rd season. You know, John, like most things, gives us the idea to do different projects. And really the podcast is like our way of just sharing our experience with others. And you're so great with that.
Yeah.
I mean, you have a book where you really talk about just motivating people to live their best lives. Like you're just all like you are living, walking, talking like
Awesomeness.
I mean, I read your bio and I told John, I was like, and I don't want to use all the curse words, but I did say, Paige is a badass. That's what I said. Okay. Had single mom of
Yeah.
3. Like you are literally have made your own way. And it is just so inspiring. So we wanted to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah.
We're always interested in knowing like how other HGTV hosts made it to HGTV. So whatever it is that you want to share your story. And of course, John is like
I have all kinds of questions.
all kinds of
All
questions.
kinds of questions. I'm like, it's really cool because like I think it's pretty cool being in the HGTV kind of family, right? And so we get to like know the things that people tell, like we all have our little bios and we all kind of have these interesting stories, but a lot of times these are the opportunities you just kind of get into the details of how you got to where you are, right?
Mhm.
And so I think that really gives us an opportunity to talk to you and kind of have you share your story of like, I know what I read about how you kind of pitched the idea, which was super cool in and of itself. But what in that kind of like, what was that journey for you going from being a realtor to like being in construction, and then all of a sudden HGTV approaches you or a production company approaches you, right? Like what was that What was that like for you?
Well, it seemed like it's just part of my path. So I had 3 babies a little prematurely than I would have liked to. When by the time I was 23, I had 3 beautiful, amazing little human girls that I had to take care of. And, you know, I always wanted to be in entertainment in some facet. As much as I'm extroverted, I'm extremely aware, which created a form of kind of just being really scared to be in front of the camera. So I was fine just behind the camera, and it started off in music. So then I had them, and I was managing a couple of people. My first artist was Int'l Jordan with his wife. We had a production company. So we got
this is how we do it.
We got inside of Def Jam. And then I had the babies, moved to Nashville by faith, and then just threw myself into real estate and only focusing on these girls, and then breaking a pattern of single motherhood that was in my family with my mom, my sister, my grandmother, and 2 of my aunts. So my only purpose was to mold them in a facet where you go to college, you graduate, then do whatever you want to do. You know, we have to break this pattern in our family. And we did, you know. And so when I put them all through private school, not a dime in child support from their father, God bless him and his journey. And that's broke right there, y'all.
Listen,
you hear that,
Listen, she
my daughter's sitting back here.
Yeah, and she's saying his journey.
Yes, in his journey, God bless him, but put them through, and this is all from real estate, you know. Being a realtor, I didn't go to college. I could have, I didn't want to. As that LA girl, you know what I'm saying? I'm gonna go hustle and figure it out. So, but did move to Nashville for 20 years just to find, I couldn't figure out a better life for them at 23. And we weren't in the streets, but we just weren't, I couldn't at that time raise them at 23 how I was raised. So we jetted, went to Nashville, got my real estate license. I knew 3 people in Nashville, became one of the top realtors, had the billboards, did all that, put them through private school, graduated all 3 from college, University of Notre Dame, Bellarmine University, and University of Tennessee, Knoxville. So cool. And there's stair steps. So I had my first daughter, and 16 months later, I had my twin daughters. So they're all only 1 grade apart. That was 3 prom, 3 driver's license, 3 going to college. It was crazy. So they, while we're in college, even though I was still pretty much hands-on with them, I saw this opportunity, like you read, John, that said, hey, we're looking for minority couples for an HGTV show from a production company. I didn't understand any of the lingo then. I was like, oh my God, with their recipe, you know, the wife is the designer and the husband is the contractor. And I'm like, dang, I'm going through my whole mental Rolodex across the country, and I don't know any Black folk that, you know, or others, you know, that, you know, would make this criteria. So I woke up at 3 a.m. like, that's not what they're looking for. They're looking for me, and they're looking for God.
Yes.
I rewrote it, and I, like 3 o'clock in the morning, I wrote a show and I named it Flipping X's, and which subsequently another show came out years later called Flipping X's on another network. But I named it Flipping X's. I created a bio for him. He didn't even have one. I submitted it to this said production company without even telling Duran. And I was like, and they called me back that day. Like, are you guys real? I'm like, yeah.
Wow.
You know, I'm a realtor. I'm a broker. He's a contractor. You know, we were together. We weren't married, but we dated for 5, 6, probably 7 years by the time it all faded off. And so that whole story. And then they picked it up. And I was like,
wow.
That's so cool.
It's kind of like, to answer your question, John, like coming back to where I knew I was supposed to be in entertainment 20 plus years ago. Then I had my babies and they became my sole purpose. But, you know, there's a saying in church, you know, what the enemy meant for evil, God will make it good, you know, scripture. But it's like, okay, that wasn't the enemy. So I don't even like saying that as it pertains to my babies, but that was part of all 4 of our journeys. And now I can get back to my journey because I'm young enough to continue it.
That's amazing.
That was a blessing in it.
That's great. And that was going to be one of my questions, was like, you know, it's so rare that most people are moving to the bigger city, right? Like most people go from Tennessee to LA. Right? Not from LA to Tennessee. And so why Tennessee, and what made,
well, she was doing it for her kids. She was saying she was trying to, you know, basically not repeat the pattern and not raise her kids in the same environment that she was raised in, correct? Right. Being in LA,
Well, yes and no. So I hear where you're coming from, John, and you too, Mary. So the short of that is, because that's a book in itself, I was raised in an amazing part of Los Angeles, West LA. And so I had these 3 little babies, still living in West LA, but literally just living check to check, working for Magic Johnson, who I was getting paid well, but I had 3 babies in LA by myself. So it was like, oh my God. So we had to go do some work in Nashville and some other Texas. We were in some other cities, and I got to Nashville and I was like, people were saying, y'all come back now. And I was like, what? People were waving. And I was like, I called my mom in tears, like, Mom, people speak out here and they say, y'all come back. And she was like, that's the South, honey. I was like, oh my God. I talked to this man, he said his rent was $700 for a house. And I was paying $1,400 back in 1999. I was like, what? And so I was like, so that was in April of 2000. And I made this whole vision plan, just me and the Lord. I did a whole vision plan when PowerPoint first came out back in 2000. And I did a whole presentation, just me and God. And I'm sure the babies were just looking at me like, who is she talking to? And I said, I got to get out of here because LA is it's gonna swallow me up. And I'm going to end up in a place with them that I don't want to be. Now, I could have had the faith and, okay, I'm just gonna, tough this out. But the flip side was, I had to get out. You just know when your spirit is done.
Right.
And I had visited in April. This is in July of 2000, just a few months later. I visited Nashville already. And I said, I'm packing up. I had met this wonderful couple at a church I visited while we were out there in Nashville. And I called them. I was like, hi, remember me? Yeah. So, back in 2000, I didn't have money to fly back and forth. And we didn't have, cameras on our phones. We had a map. We did not have GPS. And I said,
MapQuest, right? Is that what it was back in the day? MapQuest?
That was before MapQuest.
Oh, wow.
I literally had a map. So I called them. They were a great couple. They said, listen, if you trust God and trust God in us, we will find a safe place for you and your babies to live.
Wow.
They went back to their church. One of the people in their church were renting out a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house, not apartment, in a sweet suburb of Nashville. And they said, it's ready for you. And I said, okay, how much is it? They were like $750.
Wow.
I said, a week? Because I could just stay in LA.
A week.
They were like, no, a month. And I was like, what's the catch? What I got to do for that? That's off. So they were like, a month. And so they left the key under the mat. I didn't even fill out an application. I didn't send in a deposit. And I lived there for 2 years with them. And then we bought our first house where we lived in that house for 17 years. And once they graduated, I sold it. I moved to a cute condo. And then in 2019, when they all graduated from college, I came right back home to LA.
Wow. I love all the full circle moments. It's like all of this and then coming right back. And you just just creating, like I said, making that path for yourself and for your girls. So I wanted to ask you, why real estate though? Like what was it about real estate? Because you are self-made, as a self-made woman, why is it that you chose to go into that?
Well, thank you. My mother is an author. My father is an entrepreneur. In fact, you'll love this story, Mary. He was the first Black-owned optical business in the Los Angeles area, the Crenshaw area.
Wow.
And our optical shop was called Page Optical. So we were all things glasses. So if you ever, Googled, all of the stars in the 70s and 80s all wore these big glasses with rhinestones or diamonds. He was the one that was designing these glasses for them.
Wow.
So like all of the news articles, Stevie Wonder and Red Fox and, all of these amazing Black Hollywood stars. We were at all the parties, so I grew up in Black Hollywood, grew up as, hey, that's the optician to the stars. And so he was an entrepreneur. Turns out he was from Murfreesboro, which is a suburb about 30 miles outside of Nashville. My mother's Canadian. So when he died when I was 8, so when he died, she thought Murfreesboro was Memphis, which is 3 hours the opposite direction.
Wow.
So I moved to Nashville. I was like, oh, my hope. And I lost contact with my dad's family when he died, but I was like, oh, they're all in Memphis. And I was like, Mommy, no, they're in Murfreesboro. They're 30 minutes away from where I live.
Wow.
So that was a full circle in itself, going back to my dad's roots, because I still honor him and acknowledge him with everything I do. Because my mother always says, you are your dad's child. You're extroverted, your parties and your entrepreneurial spirit. So I got that spirit from him. Right before I left, I was working for Magic Johnson when I just said, I gotta go. You know, I gotta go. Like I just said, I gotta go right now. I gotta go. And that was April. I left in July. And I worked all over for Magic Johnson Enterprises, but at that moment when I left, I was working for Magic Johnson Development, where we were developing all of the movie theaters that he wanted to put in the urban areas and the Starbucks in the urban.
I remember that.
I remember that.
In Texas. And did they ever get to Texas?
Yeah, they did.
Oh,
yeah, there were some movies.
There was some theaters out here.
They were.
Yep.
So at that point, working directly for Ken Lombard, who was the president of Magic Johnson Development, I was going to get my real estate license because it just made sense if I'm working here and we're buying all this property that I should have my license. So I started the classes, but then I was like, I gotta go. So when I got to Nashville, I was like, well, let me just pick up there, even though I only knew 3 people, you know. I was like, I'm a huge faith walker, you guys. Huge faith. Like everything is just faith. Like, I don't know.
Definitely. Yeah, that's definitely what I'm getting from that. For sure. Yeah, like you're just like, first of all, I love that you're not afraid to just do it. You're like, I'm out of here, but I'm going to figure it out when I get there. Because at the end of the day, like you have 3 people depending on you, you know, to make a way. And you're saying, I need to be better than where I came from. And I want them to be better than me. So how can I do that? Yeah. And so that's what it seems like has been like setting you on like this. Okay. And next, we just watched The Voice with Ariana Grande and she was like, thank you, next. Like this next.
I love that song. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's a great song. She made a lot of good music, actually. She made some good music.
Yeah.
And that was, I think the cool thing that, yes, you're talking about kind of stepping out on faith. And that's one of the things that I didn't pick up until later on in life. And so it's good to hear.
We had to bring John Jesus, first of all. He met Jesus when he met me.
Hey,
and then what?
I said that's true. It's very true.
Okay. All right. And so we
that's
had
enough.
To that's a
right there.
I mean, I still lay hands on him in his sleep. What he don't know is I just feel like, help me, Jesus. Come find him and let him recognize you.
Haven't I seen on your Instagram page? Are you biracial? Haven't I?
Yes.
Seen Okay, so I am too. And
I was going to ask you about that.
My mom is white and she's agnostic. So I grew up in an agnostic environment.
Yeah.
I didn't even know what anybody was talking about. Jesus, all I knew was Hare Krishna and Buddha. You know, some peace, love, and hair grease. She marched for Black people. We were all over the place. So I didn't know Jesus until I gave my life to the Lord when I was 19.
Wow.
That's when my faith journey started.
That's super cool. And so for me, it was like just always translating. And to be perfectly honest, like she has introduced me to Jesus. There's still a gap. There's still somewhere for me to get in there.
This is why we're unequally yoked. Okay?
Because my mom also was very agnostic. She believes in like a higher spirit and
mine too.
Yeah, right. So, but like, there's no definition of what that is, right?
They didn't get up and go to church on Sunday like we did. We were in church on Sunday, Monday to clean. You know, my dad cut the grass. He was a song service leader. You know, we were there Thursdays for choir rehearsal, Friday for youth choir and shut-ins, and like we were at church every single day. Okay, and so that's what I grew up in, and so meeting him, who had, I don't want to use the word, he just wasn't tainted by all the things. Like he lived free. Yeah. And that's what I love so much about him. But when we got serious, I was kind of like, I don't know, we are unequally yoked because I still was kind of brainwashed by all of that, thinking that I had to be with someone who was a certain way. And so, we have now found a really great balance of like just living by faith. And he's such an example of that. I get to watch him take chances and take risks, just like you did. We don't know what the outcome is going to be. We're doing things like even our podcast. No one's paying us to do our podcast. We're doing that because John was like, we have things to say. We want to talk about our journey. We just want to share it and see what happens. And now we get to talk to amazing people like yourself,
which is unbelievable.
Yeah. And just learn. It's just another part of our journey of like just picking up on, you're all the way literally in California right now. We're in Houston. And the fact that we're able to connect and talk to you is really amazing. Yeah. And I know by the end of this conversation, we'll have walked away with something that we never thought we would have had before.
Yeah.
I love that you guys just even shared about being unequally yoked, because when I was looking it up, I was like, they're the most yoked couple I know on IG. You know what I'm saying? But I feel like I know you guys. You know what I'm saying? I feel like I'm part of your journey. I'm like, I love you guys. Like, I respect you. I honor you. I get the frustration that, I've seen, just in little messages between us, Mary, and it's just like, I have such a connection to you guys. And I love hearing about this part of your journey because I was, oh God, I know it's a strong word that some church folks can't take, but the truth is the truth. I was untainted and free, and then got super constricted in church and confused, and went through years of spiritual, emotional, and financial turmoil. Like, what is happening? Until like now, just in the last probably 5, maybe 7 years, I'm like, okay, Jesus, we have a whole different relationship.
Yes.
Right. And it's not inside the 4 walls of the church, but my faith is so strong.
Absolutely.
Leaving Nashville. So my show, when Flip Flop Nashville, Flip Flop, the franchise got canceled.
Right.
In 2019, I was like, oh, well, what, oops. What am I going to do now?
Right.
That was another huge faith move because I knew at that moment, and actually I exhaled like, I was kind of glad it was canceled because it was really a burden. It turned out to be a burden, and I needed to shift, and I didn't realize how much I needed to shift from it, but to something else.
Mm-hmm.
And that faith move came as a result of it being canceled. I knew that my time in Nashville was up. I came here for my babies. Yeah. I grew up in the same house for 17 years in a beautiful neighborhood, had the same friends from kindergarten until I graduated from high school. And I wanted that for my children. And I gave it to them. Mm-hmm. I said, okay, I've given Nashville a TV show. I'm a top realtor. I've bought several houses, okay, what's next? And I knew it was time to come back home.
I love that. I love that you recognize that.
Well, most people don't. And that's kind of what, and just touching on that, because I think part of, one of the things that you talked about, and one of the things that I read about you was how your real estate kind of fortunes turned whenever we had the recession, right? And you kind of built your business from the recession.
Yeah.
And I think that, and then listening to this part of your story as well, I think that a lot of times success comes from kind of knowing who you are, like knowing who you yourself are. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of where you can entrench yourself and kind of pick your direction to say, okay, now I'm going to go here, or now I'm going to go there. So like, what was that like going, being in the midst of recession, the fear, and being in the real estate industry, and then you found yourself kind of centered and grounded to say, okay, I'm going to be successful through this, and let that guide you to your, to your success as you went forward?
Well, you nailed it on the head. And what's interesting is that my agnostic but super spiritually in touch mama, and blue eyes, okay, I called her. I was like, Mama, I had just bought a Cadillac, brand new Cadillac Escalade off the showroom floor. And I said, Mama, I didn't know what a recession was because I've never had a mentor. That's why when you reached out to me, Mary, I was like, girl, you call me, you text me, here's my address. You can have everything for whatever.
So people say that all the time, like to make it sound nice, like, oh, whatever you need. But you really were like, no, here's my phone number. And I was like, John, she gave me her phone number.
I remember that.
I was like, what should I do?
Real, though. I'm still out here alone. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, I connect with you like, okay, because that's just the world. Okay. That's just the world thinking that there's not enough room for everybody.
Exactly.
But for me, I'm like, listen, I live on the 26th floor looking over Los Angeles. I can see the Hollywood sign and the observatory from here, all by faith. So there's nothing that I can't share. Because as quickly as it was given to me, it could be taken away. And so why wouldn't I share that wealth of how? Which the how, John, just goes back to the faith part. And with, oh gosh, I just forgot. It was such a great question. The recession. And so it was the same in the recession. I had this home, I had these babies, I had, my beautiful, I love cars. Give me a car and a good watch. And give me one pair of good shoes and I can fake the rest of it. Okay? I'll figure out the rest. So I've always had nice cars. And so I said, Mommy, I had never heard of a recession. I mean, maybe from the 20s or whatever in history class I wasn't listening to, right? And then I didn't have a real estate mentor, and I had my brokerage. I owned my brokerage. I had about 40 agents, if not a little bit more. And all of a sudden it seemed like everything stopped and all of these bills were due and I was paying my brokerage fees out of my money and not my agent money. So once we realized we're in a recession, I was like, well, Mommy, am I supposed to get a job? Like, what? I've never had I worked for Magic Johnson. I worked for Spike Lee. I mean, those weren't 9-to-5s, you know, I mean, but they were like the cool 9-to-5s where you want to get up and run to work, you know?
Right.
Yeah. And I said, well, I got a post office application, and she laughed and laughed. She said, Paige, you can't work at the post office. She said, look at you. She said, you tap into your faith, honey. God's going to provide. There's a big world of real estate. You ask God where you're supposed to be. And I was like, okay.
Yes.
I said, okay, mama. So I did. And I tapped in. I was like, okay, God, you have to show me. Not a week later, I happened to see that HUD, blah, 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 was looking for listing agents. Never heard of it, didn't know what it was. I applied anyway. Just like with HGTV, they selected me as a listing broker. And that I made well over $1 million just selling foreclosures during the recession.
Wow.
That's how the babies went through private school. That's how they got into all these top schools. And I wish they would have been on scholarship, but I made too much money. So that was a blessing. You know, I teach people how to shift their mindset. Like, I need my tax return. No, you want to pay taxes if you want to live a certain lifestyle.
Right. We need to be in a certain tax bracket.
Want to pay taxes.
Tax bracket. Now, I'm still stuck in the middle. I'm trying to get to the tax bracket where they go down.
Right. Right.
Where the middle class part.
Right. You want to be with where Trump, where you can write some things off.
Yes, I need my taxes to go down, but my mindset had to shift from I need a tax return. I need my kids to be on scholarship. No. Because on my vision board, I want to pay for young Black girls to go to private schools like my babies were able to. Every 4 years, I want to select one to send her. Everything is paid from a field trip to a pencil. You know,
right?
To her graduation and prom dress. You know, that's my big vision for my big give back.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what happened in the recession. I got an amazing HUD account and I had it for 11 years. I just let it go last year. I'm sorry, this year. I just let it go because I said, I'm done with that part of mine. That was hard for me to let go certain things in Tennessee, but I'm not going back. You know, I'm licensed in Georgia, Tennessee, and California, and it's time to let it go.
Well, I think that's a great segue into, I think we're going to have to make this into a part 2, because now that you are done with Nashville, that part of your journey, I won't say it's over, but you're like, okay, I have done everything that I've needed to do there. I took care of my babies there. They went to college, and now you're back in LA. We want to stop there because now we want to know all about your LA life. We want to know, and we want to know all about what she's doing in LA right now. She's got a new show that she's going to give us. Sometimes we can't talk about every single thing.
You can't talk about everything.
You know, they try to make us, keep secrets, which is cool because they want to be the first ones to put it out.
Yeah.
So we're going to pause right here and we're going to pick it back up with part 2 with Paige Turner.
You